Hey everyone, welcome back to the Mother Daughter Mixtape where we talk everything love, life, and lessons learned along the way. My name is Jada.
And my name is Charmaine.
And welcome to our podcast. Today is the season finale of season 1 of the Mother Daughter Mixtape. And in today's episode, we are just chatting and just talking about our year 2024, how it's gone, what challenges we may have faced, how we've overcome those challenges, any lessons we might have learned throughout this year, and also just talk about what's coming up in the new year for us with our personal goals, podcast goals.
Yeah, for sure.
And things like that. So, yeah.
I'm excited to get into this one.
Yeah, me too. So grab some champagne, get comfy, and let's hit play on today's episode.
Boom.
This is our last check-in of 2024.
I can't believe it. Like, we're literally at the end of the year.
We are.
And I feel like it's been a blur the last quarter of the year.
Not even the last quarter. I feel like the whole year has been a blur for me. I can't even lie to you. Like, I feel like this year absolutely flew by. Like, I feel like me bringing in the new year with my girlfriends, January 1st, we was at the club, y'all. Like, I think that just...
Partying hard.
I'm telling you, I feel like that was like 6 months ago. If that. Like, it doesn't feel like it's been a whole year at this point.
I definitely feel like... I don't know if I feel like the whole year has been a blur or that it just flew by. I feel like maybe like the first half felt fairly normal. But then definitely after like, I'll say July, August... things just seem to just speed right on by. And I don't know if that was because like I did a lot of traveling in the later part of the year. Like, I don't feel like I really started traveling. Well, I guess technically I started my birthday. That was back in March. So for those that don't know, got a birthday coming up in just over 2 months. But yeah, so I feel like I didn't start that early, but I feel like the bulk of my travel was in the later part of the year. So I feel like that's where things started to speed up for me.
That makes sense. Yeah. Like you said, I think with traveling and stuff like that, that really just kind of made my year feel like it was going by faster, but in a good way though, because
you did a lot of travel this year too.
I did.
I did. We've talked a lot about me and my travels. Let's talk a little bit about your travels this year. Like, tell us all the places you've been.
Okay. So starting in March, I went to the Virgin Islands. For the people that don't know, my dad's side of the family is West Indian / Caribbean. Caribbean is not like a ethnicity, what's the other word, race, things like that. So West Indian is the proper term to use when you're describing the people that come from the West Indies. Anyways, so I have family that still lives in the Virgin Islands. I go and visit every year around carnival time, but unfortunately my uncle did pass earlier this year, so I did have to go there for his funeral back in March. So that was, I guess, a part of my travel, but I got to see a lot of family that came into town and stuff like that. And we...
Rest in peace to Uncle Jimmy.
Yes, we love and miss him very much. But that was still a time of fun experiences. And, even though it was like a, what do people call it?
Like a celebration of life.
Exactly. A celebration of life. So that was, a great time with family and things like that. Then in April, I went to Jamaica for Jamaica Carnival. Maybe I'll insert a little bit of pictures here and there for the people that are on YouTube so you guys could see the outfit I wore for Carnival and things like that. I did play mass is how we call it, when you like put on the feathers and all that other stuff and jump in with the bands and stuff. So I did play mass in April. And then after that, I think it was Carnival again at the end of June, early July. That was my next trip, which was back in the Virgin Islands. Like I said, I go every year for Carnival, or at least I try to. Spent time with family once again. And then the next cruise, or the first cruise of the year for me, was the one that we did in August, right? Yeah. So that was to St. Croix, St. Thomas, St. Lucia, Barbados, and what's the last stop? St. Martin. Did I say that?
No.
St. Martin.
Yes.
So that was in August. end of August up until early October, and then
September.
Right. Getting my months
She gonna skip a whole month.
Yeah, sorry. Obviously, September has no significance
Blur.
to me. Yeah, a blur. And then my last trip was our as in
The
everybody, family,
cruise.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the last trip for me where we went to Mexico and Honduras. So,
That's a pretty amazing travel year,
yeah.
I think.
If I could do that every year, I think I would. Like, I know some people might be like overwhelmed and some people are kind of like, oh my gosh, 7-8 days on a boat and whatever. But I love a good long adventure.
Yeah. I think it depends for me. Like up until maybe probably 6 or 7 years ago, anything over 5 days was too long for me. Like by day 5, I'm usually ready to go home. However, like more recently, I have enjoyed the longer trips. Now, I will say the cruise that you and I did with the 5 stops that you just talked about. So St. Croix, St. Thomas, like that trip. 5 stops in 5 days, that was a bit overwhelming for me personally because it was like we were just going
back to back.
every day, and it wasn't relaxing. I had a great time, but it wasn't relaxing.
Yeah, if you looking to relax, don't invite me.
Basically.
Yeah, and she was like, oh, we don't have to do something at every stop. I'm like, let me look at these excursions. We could do a
Listen.
tour. Yeah, if you want to relax, don't invite me because I'm such an adventure and like do things, activities kind of girl where
The
we gotta
funny
do
thing
stuff.
is, like, this is one of the things that I want to talk about, and we're going to get into like what we're going to talk about like in season 2. One of the things I want to talk about is like traveling and why you can't travel with everyone. Or maybe you have different types of trips that you take with certain people.
Right.
Anyway, we'll get into that. But when you said that, that made me think of
She knows, like I said, she can't travel with me if she wants to relax.
it's not
you
one
can
of
probably
those
do that
trips.
with Granny if you just want to
Yeah,
relax.
for sure. Yeah. Know who your travel partners are and what they are best at doing.
Right.
So.
Exactly. Okay, so enough about me. How has your 2024 been? Any like reflections that you've been having recently about like how the year's gone? How are you doing? Like,
Yeah, this time of year, and I've mentioned this before, it is a period of reflection for me. So naturally, I just like reflect over the year. So not only because like we're doing this, but it's just something that I have, started within myself, probably I would say in the last 5 or 6 years more so. It's just trying to understand like what went well, what didn't go so well, things like that. But for the most part, 2024 was really good. I mentioned that the last quarter of the year, just seemed to be a blur, and it was just like really almost, I don't know, like it just flew by, right? And I think that's more so because I've, just had some personal things going on, and it has just taken some extra energy to get through just that time period. So one of the things I'm grateful for 2024 is one, for us starting this podcast, because it has allowed me to have a voice. Not that I didn't think that I had a voice before and that I couldn't express myself, but it forces me to think beyond certain things, as we're talking about various topics and things like that. So it forces me to kind of open my mind a little bit more and just kind of be the person that you're speaking about. So like when we talk about things like stop people pleasing and, things, I'm like, I'm really talking to myself half the time when we're, having these discussions and things like that. So, 2024 overall has been a really great year. Clearly I have traveled like nobody's business. 5 cruises, which is insane. I went to Paris this year. So it's been really good. So I'll just leave it at that.
okay, that's good to hear. Yeah, you've had a busy 2024.
It has been, but in a good way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I do want to echo what you said about expressing your gratitude for the podcast and us starting the podcast, and also just want to say I just want to express my gratitude for all of the listeners out there, people who have followed us on Instagram, subscribed to our YouTube, all the people that just have supported us throughout this journey. It's been a little over 2 months now that we've been doing this podcast, maybe closer to 3 months. And we've just we have over 100 followers on Instagram, 50 subscribers on YouTube, and you know, looking back on this, I know a year, maybe 2 years from now, I'm going to be like, oh, look at us celebrating 150 and things like that.
Yeah.
But, you know, it really is, I don't want to say the little things because I don't want it to sound like I'm, you know,
minimizing.
Right, exactly. Yeah. But it means a lot that, you know, people want to support us, listen to us. And
the grassroots, you know, community, our first set of listeners and followers and subscribers and watchers, like those are the people that you genuinely know are interested in your content. Sometimes, you know, I think people will follow or watch, I don't know, for various reasons, but, you know, a lot of the time it's going to be, you know, people that you know personally up front, like friends and family, and then they share it with other people. So for those of you that have shared, because I know I've seen some of you sharing links and things like that. So thank you for that, because that is what will help us to grow and get out to the masses, outside of, you know, our personal friends and family. And for those of you that are personal friends and family, of course, we thank you so much, because without you, we wouldn't have those 100 followers, 100 plus followers and 50 plus subscribers on YouTube. So we're growing, and we're trying to consistently keep that trend in 2025.
Yeah, for sure. So thank you guys. We appreciate you guys for your support. So moving a bit into your reflection that you mentioned, that, you know, this is the time for you that you reflect on the year and just kind of see how you want to move forward going into the new year. Any personal goals or growth or anything like that that you want to share? Like, what do you feel like this year has really taught you that you're taking into 2025?
Yeah, I think, so like I mentioned before, doing this podcast makes me reflect, because I want to, first and foremost, present my authentic self, right? So what that means for me is I have to think about what am I doing in my personal life and like what I'm willing to share with the world. So for me, that comes down to things like not saying, or more or less not saying, do as I say, not as I do. So basically being the person that I'm telling other people, not that I'm saying you should be this, that, or whatever, but, you know, we have made suggestions on this channel or through this platform where, you know, we were like, you know, don't be a people pleaser and stand on business and set boundaries. Well, I can't really be authentic if I'm not doing those things myself.
Right.
And part of my reflection is, or has been, recognizing when I haven't always stood on business. And it's an iterative process. Like, you are doing very well at it for a period of time and you might fall off for whatever that reason may be.
That's life with anything that you do.
Exactly. So it's more of, okay, at what point during the year was I doing really well at these things? When I did fall off, what caused me to fall off? Or, you know, can I pinpoint something that may have happened, some life event that may have happened that would cause me to fall off? So then I reflect on that. And I don't know, it just kind of brings me back to a place of centering, if you will. So that really, for me, in the last, I'll say even just in the last couple of weeks, has been more of my reflection that, okay, girl, you done fell off a little bit. Okay, let's get back to what you know is right. Because we all go through those moments and periods of time where we're just not quite ourselves, or, you know, you get to these periods where you find yourself in a funk. Or, you know, and it's like, how do I pull myself out of this funk? Or recognizing how you got into that funk. So when I think about periods of reflection and this time of year, that's usually more so what it is for me, is recognizing how I got there, so that I know either how to pull myself out of it. What can I do differently is usually one of the first things I think about is, you know, what can I do differently to get me to, you know, from point A to point B, whatever that thing is. So it's really just a way to push yourself, if you will. And I'm struggling, I guess, because it's been a lot recently, and I don't really want to get into a whole lot of personal things in this moment. Maybe I'll feel comfortable enough to talk about it in 2025.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, no pressure. And of course, as someone who knows a little bit more of your business, you've done a good job this year, and I want to tell you that, and give you a pat on the shoulder, back hug, air hug, virtual hug, something. I know it's been a rough year for you, with some of the stuff that you've been going through in your personal life, but you've come out on top of your battles. Like, at the end of the day, like you said, life is going to throw you challenges and things like that. And it's really just about how you show up for yourself at the end of the day to, fight those battles. So,
that part.
And God is not going to give you anything that he doesn't think you can't handle.
That is true.
Yeah. So
that is true. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Of course, you are strong. You is kind. You is important.
Literally, like, that's where my mind.
So, but when you were mentioning, falling off with your habits and things that you've been working on and things like that, something that comes to mind for me is, I've been in therapy recently. And one of the things that my therapist mentioned is that, because I talked to her about how I want to set goals for the year and things like that. But a part of me is nervous and or scared to set goals because I tend to fall off and I tend to not be consistent. And I tend to I don't want to let myself down when I make promises to myself when it comes to goals and stuff like that. But something that she mentioned is that, she asked me and she said, well, with you setting these expectations, are you expecting to do this every day for the rest of your life? And, my original thought was like, yeah, girl, I want to make these changes. I want to, become a better person. I have goals, personal development goals and things like that. Of course, I want to, embody this basically. But then she also just kind of brought me back to she grounded me to say as much as that sounds great and all, realistically, that's not going to be the case. Yeah. And I think with, social media and YouTube and all these inspirational videos and content that you see, they make it seem like, you gotta do this every single day, or you have to work towards this every single day, even when you don't feel like it, if you want to make progress. And while that sounds good, we know it takes 21 days to develop a habit and things like that. It sounds good in theory to do something every single day for the rest of your life until you go through life.
Yeah. And progress isn't always linear.
Right. Exactly. And I think a lot of that content makes it seem that way because it's keep showing up, keep showing up. And it's yeah, you can keep showing up. You could take a week off and then keep showing up after that week break or whatever that you do is done. So I think that's really important, going back to what we always say about giving each other grace, giving ourselves grace and, just really being kind with ourselves, because even as women, we go through our menstrual cycles, and obviously for the people who are not women who don't know, there are 4 phases in your cycle as a woman. And within those 4 phases, it's like seasons. Yeah. You have winter, fall, spring, and summer. And throughout those periods, as women, our energy levels are lower during that winter and fall phase, and our energy levels are higher during that spring and summer phase.
Yeah, it's chemical.
Right. Yeah. So it's of course you're going to, have the motivation. And that's exactly what it was for me when I was talking to her. I was in my summer phase and I'm oh, I have so many goals that I want to achieve, and I'm going to write all this stuff down. All the energy in the world. Exactly. And then when it came, to be the fall time, I'm oh, I'm ready to go lay down. I don't want to get up and journal. I don't want to meditate. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that.
Yeah. That's really interesting that you say that and acknowledge that, because I think that even as women, we don't necessarily recognize, that, okay, when your cycle comes, you probably are you're feeling depleted and not wanting to do much. And you think that it's just during that time. But like you said, it's, that 28-day cycle, you're going through those highs and lows and not even realizing that you're going through these periods, pun intended, where, you are going to feel, amazing one day, and the next day you feel like you're down in the dump. And, so I think it's important to not only for other women, because don't necessarily think about that as a woman. So for, like you said, for the non-females out there, it would be, good for them to know and recognize that sometimes when you think that we're being whatever, it's not because we want to be, it's just a natural occurrence.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
It's hormones. And I know me and I know my body when I'm in that luteal phase. I am irritable, mean. I don't want to talk to nobody. Just give me some space, because it's like the luteal phase is the phase right before you enter your menstrual, right before you start bleeding. And that's when the energy levels start to get lower and lower and lower. And I feel it like in my energy, my mood starts to change. That's when you start to have mood swings and stuff like that. Just don't talk to me when I'm in my luteal phase. Okay?
The crazy thing is, I guess that's technically like PMS, your premenstrual syndrome, I think is what that means at this point. But, there's always, like, even growing up back in my day, like, there was always the joke, oh, you PMSing? And, it's like, well, yeah,
I am. I am, actually, since you mentioned it.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think men, take note.
Take note and give us some grace, please. Like, y'all ain't got to deal with the hormone shifts the way that we do. So I feel like once y'all have a better understanding of that, y'all will understand a bit better that it's not intentional. Like, trust me, I don't want to be this mean and irritable during this time of the year.
For real.
Or during this time of the cycle phase, whatever.
Yeah.
I would much rather like to wake up the way that y'all do, all pippy like and cheery. Imagine ovulating y'all aren't literally ovulating, but being at your peak, hormone, whatever, every single day.
Yeah.
That would be nice. So please just give us some grace. Anyways, we supposed to be talking about 2024 and goals.
Y'all see how we get off on tangents and stuff.
It's a conversation. Okay. This is how conversations go.
So yeah, I mean, that was a little bit about, just kind of how my 2024 has gone, and, it's been up and down, but mostly positive, mostly good. Of course, the travel, those were the highs, and, spending time with family and friends. Cause when I travel, it's pretty much, with you guys, with family, and then, my friends, of course, that's who I went to Paris with some friends. I can't talk. But yeah, so what about you? Like, we talked about your travels a little bit, but on a more personal level, like, how do you feel your 2024 has gone, and what did you learn from it?
2024 was, it was a year. I'm wondering, I think behind 2020, it was probably one of my worst years. I can't even lie to you.
Really?
Yeah. Like, it was rough for me this year, honestly. I think 2020 was probably my worst year. It's so interesting because 2020 was like the year that I had my best birthday, I feel like, but it was my worst year with like COVID. I was super depressed and all that stuff. So.
I think a lot of us, you know what? I would love to do a
2020.
Yes.
To talk about what that looked like.
Like how COVID really affected life. Okay. Sorry.
No, you're fine. I think that's a good idea. But I think, I think this year is right behind 2020 as far as like one of the roughest years I've had, because like I said, I lost my uncle this year back in March. And then I might get a little emotional, y'all. So please, bear with me. And then a month later, losing my grandfather.
Yeah.
That was really rough. And like I mentioned earlier, I went to Carnival in Jamaica instead of going to my grandfather's funeral. And I think that was kind of my way of coping instead of going to another funeral and crying my eyes out. And like, I wish I would have been there with my family. Like, I have my regrets there. Like, I regret not going because I wanted to be there for my family. And obviously that kind of left a bit of a rift there with my family and like me and our relationships and stuff like that. But those two deaths, and they were literally like a month apart. Exactly.
Yeah, like back to back.
Yeah. That was really rough for me. And it was just like, I think from there on, my coping mechanism at the time was just going out and partying. And I was kind of already doing that. Like I said, January 1st, I brought in the new year with my girlfriends and stuff at a club and stuff like that. But I feel like from January all the way until like July, I was just partying. And
you did party a lot this year.
I did. I was partying. I was drinking. I was doing a lot. And I think, especially after experiencing those losses, I started to find myself in a phase of just like partying to escape or like to get away from, you know, my own thoughts and, you know, emotions and things like that. And that started to carry over into like the relationships I was having with like men too. You know, I was kind of just doing whatever, and it was just kind of like, like I've come to realize now that I don't want that for myself, you know, moving forward. Like I want to stick to boundaries, and I want to stand on business, and I know what I want out of a partner and things like that. So I think moving into 2025, one of the main things that I'm really focusing on is self-development and personal development, so that I can become the person that I desire to be as a woman, period, but also to be an ideal partner for like my future person. So for the people that don't know, just to kind of get into a little bit of like personal goals and things like that. And don't come for me for having a personal goal of wanting to find a partner in 2025. Like,
there is absolutely nothing wrong with that.
Because a lot of people like to say, oh, decenter men from your life. And I don't think I have men at the center of my life.
I don't think that that's what that means either.
Right.
So, yeah.
So I don't think that. But one of my goals is to find love in 2025.
I think that's a great goal.
I think it is too. I think so.
Why would people think that wanting to find love or find your person means that you're centering your life around that one thing?
I think
you didn't
maybe
say that was your only goal.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
So,
right. Yeah, I think that's a Gen Z thing. Like they are so adamant about, I guess just like I said, women decentering men. And I do agree that we shouldn't center men in our lives and things like that. Sure. But it seems what I've noticed is that when, you know, people talk about like wanting to find love and wanting to, you know, have a good dating life and things like that, people are like, oh, you need to decenter men from your life. And then when you move forward, you know, it'll be less stressful and you'll love yourself more. Yeah, like you'll love yourself more when you decenter men from your life. And it's like, just because I want to have a good date, like there's a balance. That's what life's about. You should want to, you know, connection, and you know how I am about that kind of stuff. So so like I said, finding my partner in 2025, and I think I might be on the right track, guys. The TikTok algorithm has been sending me all these videos. I've been getting them tarot readings from them people saying, you're going to find love in 2025. I better. Okay? I better.
Speak it into existence.
I already manifested.
I was going to say manifestation.
I already manifested. I already wrote it in my journal. I already did all that. But yeah, so I just think, like I said, development as a woman and showing up for myself in the ways that I would want to show up for like someone else and things like that.
Yeah. And, you know, I think that when you focus on yourself and focus on your self-development and things that make you happy, you naturally become more appealing
and attract.
And it's not like that's the reason you're doing it. You're doing it for you. But if that's like a byproduct of it, baby, bring it on.
Yeah.
You know,
you become more magnetic. And I agree with you with that. Like, so, and it's not that, like you said, that I'm doing it to become more magnetic, to attract more people or whatever. Like I genuinely want to develop as a person. So I think 2024 really taught me, especially within the last couple of weeks when we were talking about people pleasing and standing on boundaries and things like that. I need to do that because we
need to do that
with people becoming more magnetic and things like that when they're working on themselves and stuff like that. Honey attracts flies. Honey attracts bees. Honey attracts all kinds of right. So it's important to, one, have discernment, obviously, but two, you know, be mindful that with you becoming more magnetic and you're attracting all these people and stuff too, that's one of the things you're gonna have to learn how to stand on boundaries and enforce boundaries so that you're able to weed them out. Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay, well, I think those are awesome personal goals. Any others that you want to speak about? Like,
Just look. Well, I won't say little things to be, minimizing, but I want to read more, so we'll aim for 12 books in the year. Look, there be these people on TikTok that be like, I just finished 105 books. Girl,
I used to love reading. Like,
me too.
well, yeah, you even as a kid, you
I used
really
to
loved
love reading.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you want to know what that makes me think about?
What?
That one Facebook post that you put up about me.
Okay, so let me just tell a quick story. I don't even remember how old you were. Probably late elementary school years, I want to say.
Okay. Or maybe even middle school.
It might have been.
Yeah.
And she had gotten in trouble at school or something. And I'm trying to set up a punishment because, I'm trying not to beat my child every opportunity I get.
I used to get beat a lot, though, y'all. Don't get it twisted.
Deserved. So, I'm trying to think of other ways to punish her. So the punishment was that she had to read whatever book.
Yeah, but I came up with the punishment. That's where you went wrong.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she let me decide what my punishment was going to be.
That is where I went wrong. Okay, so she comes up with the punishment that she has to read this book, right? And I'm like, oh, okay, at least she's going to learn something in the process. And, okay, that's a good punishment. So she's in her bedroom because, she's on punishment. So that's where you have to be, in your bedroom. So she's in her bedroom. I'm in my bedroom. And I'm probably watching TV or something. Literally, I hear her reading. She's reading out loud, which in and of itself is not a problem. However, this girl is reading in a British accent. And I'm sitting here like, how is this a punishment? And she is literally out here reading in a British accent. I mean, like,
I'm having a ball.
Clear as day, having the time of her life.
Listen, sometimes you just gotta make the most out of a punishment, baby.
Parents, do not, lesson number 1, do not let your kids
choose their own punishment.
Yeah, that was hilarious. I did. Yeah.
Funny. She went and posted about it on Facebook.
And I see it, like, how your Facebook memories come up every year, and I crack up about that like all the time. But yeah. Fail.
Listen, at least I like to read, okay?
Yeah.
At least I like to read.
For sure.
So let's talk a little bit about, the podcast. Obviously, we are coming to an end for season 1, which is a bit bittersweet, but I'm looking forward to this break that we're going to take to really, recuperate, rejuvenate, and, get some great ideas going for season 2. Mm-hmm. What's one of your favorite moments or episodes or anything like that from season 1?
Yeah, so up until this point, so we've done 9 episodes thus far. Mm-hmm. This, what we're talking about today, is episode 10. Mm-hmm. I have to say my favorite episode is episode 7. Mm-hmm. And that was the episode where we talked about stop being a people pleaser, talked about standing on boundaries, or setting boundaries and standing on business. Literally, and I will tell you, when the episodes drop, I immediately watch them on YouTube. I know I am working. I'm multitasking at the same time, but I will watch the episode as I'm working. Immediately when that episode dropped and I watched it, it was almost like I was watching someone else that wasn't us. And I watched it and was like, man, this is good. Like, I literally sat back and was like, wow, this is really good. Not because it's us, not because I'm trying to, I'm pumping us up, but like the content for me was just it spoke to me. And I know that's something that we talk about a lot in terms of like going forward, and we, just talk a lot about standing on business. But that episode just really spoke to me. I enjoyed watching it. I hope you guys enjoyed. And if you haven't watched it, hands down, that was my favorite, episode 7.
Okay. Yeah, I like that episode too. Like you said, we talked a lot about, setting boundaries and things like that. And like you said, that spoke to me too, because I was going through a couple of situations where I needed to set boundaries. And I think that us talking through that really did help me to really close it in. Yeah. So I'll say my favorite episode that we've done is actually our first real episode, which is episode 2. Okay. Where we talked about dating from our generational perspectives. And I think the reason why is just like hearing your stories from when you were dating back in the day and what that looked like for you, and then kind of, I think just hearing your experiences, because I feel like, I don't know, it just helps me to get to know you better and know like what your life was like growing up and things like that.
Yeah.
Like the different stories that you shared with like the bag phone and all of that kind of stuff. You know, I just really like to hear about, you know, how things have changed over time and stuff like that. So, yeah, I think that's my favorite episode so far.
Okay, I can see that. Like, I enjoyed that episode as well. And like you mentioned, like naturally, I don't talk a lot about like my childhood and, you know, growing up and things like that. And that's something else I want to get into, something that I haven't mentioned. I'll just mention real briefly here, and we'll probably talk about in a future episode. My mother passed away when I was 16. So you got emotional earlier. Like, I'm trying not to let that get to me in this moment, but you know, that was a very difficult time in my life growing up as a teenager, and definitely something I want to get more into. But I think that's one of the reasons why I don't talk about my childhood as often, because it was so painful.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I see that. I would love to, I was going to say, I would love to talk more about like what your life looked like, you know, as you were younger, as we move forward. And, you know, I do want to talk a bit about like what your life looked like with your mom and stuff like that. But it doesn't just have to be that. Like, I would love to talk about, you know, other experiences that you've had from when you were younger and stuff like that. Like, I don't know, something about like the 90s. It just seems so,
the best decade ever.
I'm telling you.
Period.
I mean, I wasn't there, but, you know, just seeing the movies, the music. I mean, it's a part of, you know, who we are as far as like the Mother Daughter Mixtape and why we came up with this name and things like that. Yeah. So I think that I would love to just, you know, hear more about that. Yeah. So.
All right, so let's pivot a little bit and talk a little bit about some of the feedback that we've gotten from like our followers and subscribers, and even in person. I know I've gotten quite a bit of feedback just from seeing people in person, you know, if I'm at an event or something like that. So I'll ask you first. So what type of feedback have you been getting, you know, from, I'm sure you've talked to your friends and, you know, maybe even other family members that, you know, maybe they don't necessarily comment on our posts and things like that. But like, what type of feedback are you seeing?
I've honestly gotten nothing but good feedback from friends and family. Mostly friends, honestly, which is, I won't say it's surprising. Just being that I'm younger and I feel like our demographic is more on the older side, you know, people in their 35 to 55-ish age group, based off of YouTube, what they're telling us. But, you know, just even from day one, you know, one of my friends from college, she, you know, watched our first episode and she gave me a point by point, like she literally took notes throughout the entire episode. That's and just so like awesome. Let me know, you know, what she really loved and, you know, things like that. And honestly, I mean, we haven't gotten too much, you know, pushback or criticism or anything like that I've noticed. Yeah. But even, you know, when I just randomly post on Instagram, somebody will swipe up and be like, hey, just wanted to let you know, so proud of you. Love the podcast, by the way. Same. So I've gotten nothing but positive feedback.
Yeah, same. I would say nothing but really great feedback. We're always open and welcome to constructive criticism and, you know, but for the most part, those that I've spoken to in person or, you know, phone calls, text messages, you know, outside of like social media responses and things like that, nothing but great feedback, like you said. And one of the things that, at least for me as your mother, you know, a lot of course, all my friends are, you know, they have known you as since you have grown. Baby, as you have grown up. And they're like, who is this 25-year-old articulate, smart, beautiful young lady? And I'm just like,
so sweet.
I'm so proud as a mother. Like, I've seen this like way back when, like, and I'll just tell another quick story. You probably, well, you'll remember when you were interviewing at the private school.
No, actually, I don't remember that.
Really? Okay. So this would have been in the middle of your 10th grade year. So you interviewed, I was considering and ended up switching her to a private school in the middle of your 10th grade year. And part of that process was that you had to do an interview, and that was without me. So you had to interview with the head of the school. After your interview, they brought me in, you know, just to kind of talk about how your interview went. And they were so like, they were awed by just how well you spoke and how you carried yourself, even at that would have been what, 15, age 15.
16,
Yeah. So I've seen it like way back 10 plus years, you know, so I've been seeing it as, you know, you've grown and things like that. But for other people and for my friends to see that, like, it's just a proud mommy moment where, you know, to get that type of feedback. So that's the kind of feedback that I've been getting, that like you guys are just, you know, so awesome and dynamic together. And Jada is just so well spoken, and, you know, so that's
Y'all
what
are
I've
so
enjoyed.
sweet. Thank you. I will say, I have known for quite some time, probably since I was in high school, I do interview really well.
You do.
Yeah. Like even from my first job at McDonald's to even, you know, me interviewing for my most recent position that I'm in, my, you know, boss at the time told me like, you interview really well. So, you know, that makes me happy. I appreciate y'all. Y'all are so sweet.
Yeah. Well deserved.
Thank you. Well, obviously, kudos to my mother, because without you, I mean,
It takes a village.
sure. Oh, look at you. That's so sweet. That's sweet. So before we wrap up, I'll leave you with 2 questions.
Okay.
What's one thing you're leaving behind in 2024? And what are you most excited to bring into 2025?
Those are great questions. The first thing that comes to mind in terms of what's the one thing that I'm leaving in 2024, ignoring red flags. I have been, I won't say terrible because I don't want to speak negatively about myself in that way, but I have been very,
You give a lot of grace.
too much
Too much
grace. Yeah, I'm really bad about ignoring the red flags. Like, if I see a good quality in someone, I focus on that. Not to say that that's a bad thing. You want to pump up the good qualities and celebrate the good qualities and things like that, but not at the expense of ignoring the things that are detrimental or could be detrimental to whatever that relationship is.
Right.
So that's the one thing that I would leave in 2024. And I'm not saying that I'm going to be perfect at it. It's going to take practice.
It is.
You know, so that's giving myself more grace than I give others.
That's a good one.
I was going to say that's the one thing that I'm going to take into 2025 is giving myself more grace than I give to others. Because not to say that I won't give other people grace, because you have to at some point,
Right.
you know, but not at the expense of your own happiness, not at the expense of just yourself.
And your sanity. Yeah.
Yeah. So those are my things. What about you? That was a great question, by the way.
I think the original thought that came to mind for me of what I'm leaving in 2024 is just experiences, people, things, whatever that just no longer serve me. Yeah. Because I think that 2025 is going to be an opportunity for me to have kind of like a fresh start, fresh slate, you know, build new relationships, meet new people, have new experiences. So, yeah, I think just leaving the 2024 things in 2024, you know, that's okay. You know,
Yeah. If it's not serving you,
right.
it's okay to either leave them behind or keep them at a distance,
Right.
if you will. Not everything has to be in your close inner circle, everything and everyone.
Right. And I've come to also, and I'm in the process of finding peace with those experiences, those people, and what those things and people have taught me this year. Because like I said, especially with like my boundaries and stuff like that, that was one of the more recent, but one of the biggest things that I feel like I've accomplished this year with setting boundaries.
Yeah.
Because like I said, in episode 7, you know, that was something I really struggled with because I am a people pleaser and I, you know, care about what other people think and things like that.
Yeah.
Or I used to. I'm getting out of the habit of doing that.
And it's not a flip of the switch.
Right.
You know,
People think those things come overnight.
Yeah.
And like you said, those are things that you have to actively practice
Yes.
to, it's like anything that you have to practice in real life, whether it's singing, playing an instrument, you know, things like that. You have to have those experiences to put you in those positions for you to practice doing it so that it gets easier for you to do it.
Right.
You know, as those situations come up. Like you said, it's not just going to come overnight or you just magically get the power to set boundaries. You have to practice those things. So yeah, I think that was one of my bigger lessons of 2024. I think what I'm most excited about for 2025 is just seeing my personal development and, you know, just seeing the woman that I start to morph into become. I feel like I'm in my cocoon phase and I'm like starting to become a butterfly soon. Like I'm going to be coming out of my chrysalis or chrysalis. Yeah. Because
Jinx. Sorry.
I feel like we've had multiple jinx moments.
I don't know what made me do that, I'm
sorry. Okay. But yeah, I just think that with the work that I've been doing on myself and, you know, going to therapy again more recently and setting goals and, you know, I know what I want out of my life at this point that I'm in right now. I just am really intentional about what I want my life to look like in 2025. And I think that since I'll be, you know, really implementing those practices and the things that I've learned in 2024, I'm very hopeful for 2025 and like what's to come.
You've already set yourself up for success.
Right.
Yeah.
And I wanted to do that before January 1st came.
Right.
So, and we talked about that last episode. I think it's important to get started as early as possible so that there aren't any surprises when 2025 comes. So
you just said a word that I just want to kind of highlight. Intentional. Like being intentional about where you see yourself, how you're going to get there.
Right.
So I just, you know, wanted to highlight that word, being intentional. So yeah, I like that.
When I first started therapy back in 2023, my therapist definitely said that she could tell that I was being intentional with like the way that I wanted to go about my life and the friends I wanted to have and things like that. So, you know, that's really stuck with me. And the fact that she could see that lets me know that, okay, I am capable of being intentional about, you know, the things that I want to achieve. So
yeah. Nice.
All right. So I feel like this has been a really great run of season 1 for the podcast. I mean,
I do too.
Yeah. 10 episodes in. I feel like this has really created a space for, obviously, for people that are watching who are also mothers, daughters, and things like that. And that was one of the things that we talked about in the very beginning, that we wanted to create a space for women that look like us and, you know, have these similar relationships to know that they can have a relationship like ours. But I also feel like from season 1 up until, or excuse me, from episode 1 all the way up until episode 10 of our first season, that this has created a space for us, but also has strengthened our relationship, our bond, and things like that, because we've sat down, we've talked about a whole bunch of topics at this point, but I've gotten your perspective, you've gotten mine, and I think it's helped us to, you know, better understand each other.
Yeah, for sure. I think when we started this process, you know, we came into it with the thought of, you know, we're already having conversations about various things, but I think the additional conversations that have been generated out of this, I'm not sure that we would have talked about just on a random whim, you know? So, you know, I have enjoyed coming up with topics for us to kind of explore together and share and get each other's perspectives. Like you said, it really has given us an opportunity to get to know one another better from a different perspective. And that's one of the things that I personally look forward to in 2025 is having more of those experiences where we can discuss things that may not necessarily come up in like natural conversation.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah.
So I just want to express our gratitude for, you know, like we said, you know, the listeners who have really just rocked with us since the first episode, honestly. And if you got in late, I mean, you're still here. So we are very appreciative of the community that we've already started to build this early on in our podcast journey. If anybody would like to share any of their own personal reflections, what goals they may have going into 2025 and what 2024 may have taught you, let us know in the comments.
Yeah.
We'd love to hear you guys' stories, and we would love to, you know what are you guys bringing into 2025 and what are you leaving in 2024?
Absolutely. And the other thing that I'll mention, we actually have an email address. So if you don't necessarily want to share, if you want to remain anonymous or something like that, even if you have like topic suggestions, things that you would like to see us cover in 2025, feel free to email us. So it's the MD Mixtape, the M as in mother, D as in daughter, mixtape at gmail.com. Feel free to shoot us an email. Yeah. And if you want to remain anonymous, we are more than happy to, bring your suggestions and topics and things like that in an anonymous format. But yeah, definitely. We just thank you for rocking with us for season 1. We hope you stick around for season 2. We hope that you share this with your family and friends, your mothers, your daughters, your brothers. Like, it's not... While our core audience is women like us and our age ranges, we talk about a lot of things that we would love to get feedback on from men.
Yeah.
As well. So, share this with your brothers, your cousins, any and everybody. Okay. But yeah, just thank you. That's from the bottom of my heart. I know she said from us, but definitely from myself and from us. Thank you.
Yes. All right, guys. So we would love to propose a toast to the first season of the Mother Daughter Mixtape as we celebrate. And obviously we're getting into a new year. So we would love to say Happy New Year to you guys. So hopefully y'all have a glass of wine, champagne with us or something, because we would love for you guys to cheers with us to the Mother Daughter Mixtape. Also, Happy New Year. We hope that you guys have a prosperous 2025. And cheers to the first season of the Mother Daughter Mixtape.
Yes.
Cheers to many more followers, subscribers, listeners, people joining our community to come. And cheers to what?
Cheers to an amazing 2025.
Okay. Cheers.
Cheers. Quick plug. I don't know if you guys can see these glasses, but this is from a Black-owned winery in North Carolina. They are called Seven Springs. Be sure to look them up. They have events, like especially in the summertime, they do like concerts and things like that. So shout out to Seven Springs. Had an amazing time there. But yeah, look them up. Seven Springs. They're located just on the border of North Carolina and Virginia. Black-owned.
Period. We love a Black-owned business. Anything else that you would like to share, talk about, or just, I don't know, get off your chest before we wrap up season 1?
The only thing that I'll say is watch out 2025.
Yes. We are coming.
We're coming for you. Yeah. Like, we are so ready and gung-ho to just make it an awesome year.
Absolutely.
And I can't wait to see not only what we have in store just for ourselves personally, but especially for the pod. So
yeah, I'll echo what you said. I'm super excited for 2025 and what's to come out of it. So again, just really excited to grow with you guys. And yeah, again, cheers to a new year. And
absolutely.
Cheers to season 1.
Yes. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, everyone. Be sure to follow us on Instagram and TikTok at the MD, M as in mother, D as in daughter, mixtape. You can also find us on YouTube if you're listening on Apple or Spotify at the Mother Daughter Mixtape. And again, you can find us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify Podcasts at the Mother Daughter Mixtape as well.
Awesome.
All right. We thank you guys so much for hanging out with us, for tuning in, and for supporting us for season 1.
Peace to 2024. Like, we ready for you to just get on out of here.
I'm about to say, I'm ready to kiss you goodbye, girl.
We're ready for you to go. You've overstayed your welcome, and it's time for you to go now.
2025, we are welcoming you with open arms, girl. Okay. So, all right. Thank y'all. We'll catch y'all when we catch y'all. We'll catch y'all in season 2.
But we are taking a break. Just if that wasn't clear,
yes,
we are taking a short break at the beginning of 2025. So hold tight. We ain't going nowhere. We need a break.
We need some rejuvenation. Okay. And we want to come with
the fire.
Exactly. We want to come with fresh ideas, good ideas, and great topics and conversations. So bear with us. Y'all can follow us and stay tuned. All right.
Bye.
Bye, guys.